Yes? Found something? Oh, I did... I'm sorry. Sa'iro is Kyranian and can mean a lot of things, but the closest translation in our case would be brother-in-arms. My foster father called me that, so I suppose it's just an old habit. I like the way it sounds, though. If you don't mind, I'll call you that from now on.
Correct. Nothing else possesses that much raw, magical power.
Yes? Found something? Let me see. Yes, it does indeed. Seems to be some kind of energy storage, but it's empty.
All this energy, it's useless without the Numinos.
Yes? Found something? Yes? Yes, you're right. How is it possible that it moves all by itself? Let's take it with us.
It works in a way we have not even come close to comprehending, like a cosmic force.
Yes? Found something? They look useful. Let's take them to the Chronicum. Yes, I think you're right. Hopefully we didn't miss anything. Let's go talk to Pegast. Yes?
Now that was quick. So, what did you find? Well, that's not much of a surprise considering how long it was down here. And as long as we can reconstruct it, that's alright. I sent some of my men back to Ark. We'll request a caravan to get all the parts back to the temple and see what we can do from there. Let's just hope it really will help us against this cleansing, whatever it is. As much as I admire Pyrean technology, I don't like the idea of putting our lives in the hands of it. Let me see. Interesting. Truly interesting. Seems that this machine was only some kind of prototype. The real one the Pyreans were working on must be somewhere else. Plus, there's also a name for it. The Pyreans called it the Beacon.
That's poetic.
Indeed. Well then, it seems like you and your visions have once again saved the day, Prophet. There's a lot for us to do now. If you've taken care of your business here, I suggest you head back to Ark and report to Old Aranthiel.
What do you think, Saira? Do you want to leave now or stay a little longer? As you wish. What do you think, Saira? Do you want to leave now or stay a little longer? What do you think, Saira? Do you want to leave? Good. There you are. Pegast's mages have already told the Grandmaster about our find, and they're waiting for us in the Emporium. Let's go.
All that I am saying is that there are more efficient ways to battle this red madness. And heathen machines atop the Sun Temple are the last thing that will calm the townsfolk.
Maybe. But if this heathen machine is what the Pyreans used to combat the cycle, I want it near. Even if it turns out to be useless, only a fool turns down a chance. Sharim, how long will the reconstruction take?
Well, that depends on how many Pyrean mechanics you have on hand that can help us decipher these plans. Just think for once, Aranthiel. How are we supposed to give you an estimation if we don't even know what the finished machine is supposed to look like?
We will get to work right away, Grandmaster. But in any case, we're going to need a lot of steel and Pyrean crystals.
You will get them. Now, get to work. You did excellent work. We will reconstruct this machine no matter the price. Here, this will reward you for your effort. With the beacon and the sigilled stone, we now have both a sword and shield against these High Ones. It is more than I had hoped for. However, there has also been a disquieting development. I have called in a conclave, and it will take place in a day. Come back then, and use the time to rest.
Pathlessness, wherever you look. Where is this supposed to lead?
Walk blessed, Prophet. Yes. Why do you ask? They did. What are you getting at? A fair point. But in the future, just so. Yes, my time in the prison. Ironically enough, that was the last thing I had expected. For me, it was memories of the time before my incarceration. They reminded me that I was more than this deprived creature. Strange. I especially felt that in the cloister with Narazul's mages. I had difficulty. Better. Our mission, my responsibility here as a leader, it has helped me to find my way back into what would have been the alternative. In fact, this is precisely what is missing in the world. People who do not... Yes. That depends on whom you ask. In some right, a better word would be chess figures with their own will. Whatever force causes the cycle also gave us... No. Well, that is something else we only know in broad strokes. It is my task to lead mankind in its... Yours is to read the echo and help us gain the knowledge we need for victory. I do not know, but there are hints. We will see. Good question. In their writing, the Pyreans say it has existed for aeons. Since the Pyreans didn't, and neither did the dozens, but as for what happened before that, our knowledge about the past is limited. All that matters for now is that the cycle threatens us, and that we have to stop it.
What? Well, I suppose you could say that, yes. Natara, Teal, you make it sound as if the Order is some kind of... It was our path to become keepers, and we followed it. It wasn't... That's a different story, and not one for today. Should I? I don't know if you deserve to be. Maybe there is something to the Grandmaster's talk about you being one of these emissaries, and maybe you can indeed help us in some way. But you're still an outsider. No matter which crest you wear on your armor, that
What do you want,
won't
urchin
change.
child? My problem with you? I don't have a problem with you. I have a... Tell me, Prophet, who built this, which you enter and leave as frivolously as a sailor leaving a brothel? What did Malphas say to Dalsidocius after he succeeded in suppressing the Blood Moon riot? How goes the 100th verse of the Holy Path, which the novices have to recite? What is the holiest tenet of the creed to every keeper of the sigil? Why is only the highest commander of the guard allowed to enter the temple? I applaud your cunning. You know nothing, neither of our faith nor of our country. And only because you happen to have strong magic in you, Aranthiel, do you know how few Endraleans, even those of the Sublime Path, are granted the novitiate? Are you aware how hard these novices have to train and learn in order to just be allowed to enter the trial? We're not some group of tavern regulars which you can just join and leave on a whim. We are the Holy Order. We are what has... And only because Tila has doted on this idiocy of cycles and prophecies, he feels it's justified to abolish this country's You, urchin child, you're the living proof of what has become of this country. Even just your boot prints on this sacred ground are blasphemy to everything we stand for. What I see is a country that now more than ever needs peace, and transforming this order into a bunch of fortune-tellers, wild mages and Do you even know how many of our people were killed in the war Tila's fool of a son started? And now his former people pay... Now leave. Do what you want, but spare me your presence.
Now, if it isn't the prodigy, well... Oh, do you really need me to... Who gloriously defeated us in the Battle of Zara, and have since then terrorized and plotted against the poor people of the civil... Through most of it, yes, but I don't want to go into detail. Oh, don't tell Lucy that. Altogether, Juslan is probably the most gifted entropist of the civilized world. Ha! We'd be a pretty pathetic order if that was all of us, wouldn't we? Not all of them. No. Most did, but they didn't connect the dots. Or, which is more likely, didn't want to. And yes, I am frustrated to see that much ignorance in our own ranks. Oh, that's hard to tell. Which idiots did you have the misfortune to be raised by? The austere, a beautiful piece of earth, actually. Truth be told, it was them who... I was a young traveling art. I had heard a lot about Nerims, but you know who greeted me when I reached the city gate? Corpses. They burnt... It was atrocious. Well, that was when I did... And that's not even the worst. Because, my God... This is why this... But philosophy and freedom of thought are nowhere to be found. It's pathetic. Yes. On the one hand, yes, a happy... But if something happens to this person, what is religion after all? If you want a justification to... there's a lot of discussion about... Blazes, if your ideology is so... Yes, go on, try to just... Respect those around you, and killing... Especially if people don't keep to themselves with it. Quite some questions, But why not? You're not one of those god lambs, so where's the harm? Yes, the Lightborn are dead, killed by the Shadowborn. But truth be told, too little has changed for us to feel any different. If that makes sense. Yes, but that's because the Lightborn have left a power vacuum, and everybody feels obliged to fill it himself. Plus, there's the cycle, which seems to drive people into violence. I'm talking about grand-scale changes, such as in the way we think. To know that gods can be killed, that there is no other power in life than life itself. That has to do something with people, doesn't it? Well, bullshit. Just look around Enderal. The most religious country of all. And yet, people act as if nothing has happened. All it needs is some fancily dressed up clergyman to tell them that the rumors are false. And they swallow it like mulled wine and go on about their business. It's depressing. Well, I've been thinking about that. I suppose it's because the Lightborn's reign has always lived from people believing them to be divine, rather than actually being it. If that makes sense. They're more like symbols. Regret? Far from it. The gods were tyrants, and they robbed mankind of their right to self-determination. Regardless of the consequences, what we enabled the Shadow God to do was the right thing to do.
Well, well, Naya, isn't that a sight? The one they all talk about has come to visit us. Greetings, Prophet. I'm Juslan Sharim, and, as you might know already, one of the ever-renowned Neramese mages around here. What's your name? Pleased to meet you. Beautiful name, by the way. Usually our Azilian names sound as if they were chopped up with a cleaver, but yours doesn't. You have to tell me someday how a child of the steppes ended up in Ostian. But anyway, what brings you to me? Do you need anything specific, or do you just want to talk? Someone asks about you, darling. Isn't that charming? Most people are too polite to. But I'm afraid I can't satisfy your curiosity, at least not today. Let's just say that there are more things between life and death than what meets the eye. What, are you asking me to teach you? From what I've heard, you know magic as if you've studied it for centuries. But sure, why not? What do you want to know? Shh, don't talk so loud. You know how our holy friends around here feel about this school. We don't want them to get upset, do we? Sinistra. It's the mightiest of the three schools, but also the most dangerous one, which is why practicing it is forbidden on every continent of the civilized world, except for Kira. That is mostly due to the kind of eventualities it interacts with. The human psyche and the forces of life and death. Someone trained in the arts of psionics is capable of forcing his will onto others, and I'm not speaking metaphorically here. An able entropist, on the other hand, can revive the dead as his minions, and channel the energy of death. A stunningly powerful feat if you know what you're doing, and a stunningly suicidal one if you don't. This is also why only 5 of 10 students of Sinistra manage to master it. The other 5s either stop in time or end up as either a driveling lunatic in an asylum, or as a greenishly steaming skeleton. Both of the latter rather undesirable perspectives, if you ask me. So if you plan to use it yourself, just be careful. A thaumaturgist is able to alter his body and his surroundings to his liking. In practice, that means he can, for example, create magical wards between his fingertips, or send bursts of telekinetic energy towards his foes. He can also boost his own bodily capabilities, and even go as far as healing his own wounds, even though that is to be done with caution, since it strains the mind quite a lot. A very noble school, you see, but also very limited. Elementarism. If Sinistra is a Scaragian dagger, and thaumaturgy is a solid broadsword, then elementarism is a giant two-handed warhammer. A good elementarist is able to realize eventualities in which the air around him suddenly bursts into flame, or channel lightning from the sky. A very aggressive and powerful school, as you can imagine. Most arcanists favor it above others.
Oh, hello. You're the companion of that mercenary, aren't you? Dalveric, or whatever his name is. I don't want to be disrespectful, but my time's so... resort to time. I just don't.
fades away at the end of the day. Ta-dum-dum.
In life, as in death.
You just wait and see, you fucking sissy.
Walk blessed. Can I help you? It was stitched into the blanket they found me in near that village. I don't really know if it is my actual name, but I had nothing else to go with, so it stuck. That's convenient, actually. I think I still owe you an explanation. Yes, but let's talk somewhere else. Come on. So, sorry for all the secrecy. I just didn't want anyone else to listen in. Well, that moment when I neutralized the leader of the bandits in Old Dothelgrad, I'm sure you noticed that I was different then. Upset. You choose your words carefully, Saira. I appreciate that. I'll make this quick. There is something about me that you don't know. That no one knows, actually. Do you remember what I told you in the curarium about the destroyed village? Well, I wasn't entirely honest with you. Not all of it, no, and it's true that I don't know how I ended up there. But I remembered something just before I regained consciousness. Some kind of vague memory. A feeling coupled with an image. It's hard to describe because it didn't last very long, but I saw myself, but I was somehow above the rooftops, as if I flew. Below me, I saw all the chaos, the dead, the fire, the devastated houses, and I somehow felt hot, but from inside, as if my blood was boiling. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? I'm sorry, but I don't know how to describe it better than that. It was something that actually happened, I'm sure of it. But the memory, it was somehow blurred. Like a dream, but a very vivid one. Nothing. I woke up, and from there things happened just as I've already told you. But that's not really what I'm trying to get at. In that memory, when I saw all those dead bodies and all that destruction, I felt satisfaction. Pleasure. As if all that suffering, all that pain was the most exhilarating thing I'd ever seen. Well, I didn't know what to make of that memory myself for quite a long time. But then, things happened that made me understand. There is something inside my head, Saira. Some kind of second soul, an entity. Most of the time it sleeps, but there are situations in which it wakes up, mostly when something atrocious happens or has happened. Blood, pain, death. Whenever I'm confronted with these kinds of things, it tries to... I don't know how to put it. Tries to take control of me, and then things like Alt Dothelgrad happen. It's never managed to completely take me over, and it hasn't gotten as far as it did in Alt Dothelgrad for a long, long time now. But that memory from the village, I think that is what happens when I let myself go completely. If that name seems fitting to you, then yes. But I think we both know these stories about ghosts taking over the living are just stories to scare the common folk. If it helps you, think of it as some kind of temptation. One that's just waiting for the moment when I am too weak to contain it. Yes, it is immense, Saira. I can feel it every time it is trying to take me over. I don't even want to think about what would happen if I were to give in completely. I figure. Listen, what happened in Old Dothelgrad, I never should have let it come to that. But that moment when he charged me, the blood on his sword, I just couldn't contain it. And when I gave in, when I hacked him into pieces, I simply felt so thrilled, complete. I was naive to believe it would never get that far again. Naive and stupid. But do you see now? This is the reason why I train so hard, why I always try to control my emotions no matter what people do or say to me. This creature inside me, it's always on the hunt, and the only way I can keep it at bay is by controlling both my body and spirit 100%. Just one moment of carelessness. That's all it takes. No way that I know of, at least. Who should I ask? The apothecary? There are two ways that would go. Either they would ridicule me, or they would take me seriously and report my condition to the Order. Neither way helps me, and who knows what the Order would do if they found out, especially as strained as the situation is right now. I don't know. And truth be told, I'm not sure I want to. Only Master Tyrus, my foster father. He taught me how to contain it by controlling my thoughts. And he also advised me never to tell anyone about it, which I haven't. Until today. I don't know. Probably because I was afraid you'd tell someone else about what happened in Old Dothelgrad and that would raise suspicions. A coward's move, I know, but it was the best solution I could come up with. I'm sorry. I don't know, Saira. Believe me, I've asked myself that question more than 100 times. And as much as I hate to admit it, yes, there's a chance it did. I'll never find out. No way that I know of. Neither way helps me, and who knows what the Order would do if they found out. Especially as... Well, what would be the alternative? Transcribe Pyrean books like the Magisters do all day? Or drop out entirely and pour hot water for the upper city's noblewomen? Look, Saira, as you already pointed out, there is a chance that this thing inside me is responsible for the massacre in the village. And if that's true, I definitely have a lot of repentance to do, don't you think? And even if it isn't, I want to change things, to make the world at least a little bit better. And yes, I do realize that this means a lot of hardship and hard work for me, but I'm not afraid of that. Do you know why? Because that's what's missing in this world. So many people just talk and never act, because that would mean that they'd have to actually endure something for what they believe in. Determination alone hasn't helped anyone yet. Let's talk again in a few years, and we'll see if my good intentions have actually produced results. Well, that's good to know. I'd like some time by myself now, and thanks for listening.
Yes.
Strange machine. The Grandmaster talked about it. The one in Old Dusselgrad. It was really there. The two new keepers found it.
Let's talk elsewhere. We have a visitor. The Prodigy, huh? Apparently we... Prophet?
Yes.
Be careful, my sir. The streets aren't safe at this hour.
Sir?
for steel, I can provide.
do they think I am? The god of the forge?
Walk blessed, dear traveler. You probably don't know this, but unfortunately the street you're walking on is owned by the Honorable Monsieur, and sadly, he himself has ordered that all wanderers must pay a fee so that we can keep the streets in good condition. So please, be so kind and pay. That will save both of us the trouble. Well, a keeper? Fine, I think that even Krakow would make an exception for one of Malphas's holy fighters. We all honor our path, don't we? Now move on.
Aren't you? Have you been to... oh, how do they say it? Melee? My dad told me that's where the petrified live.
live with him.
Man without a ghost. Without a rudder.
The prodigy, huh? Apparently we owe you for the shards of... Hold on! We're bloody fool! Do you pay your fine right now, or you'll wander straight into jail? Fine, but next time you won't get off so easy.
Ah, brilliant! Here, this should compensate you for your efforts. However, he still needs more. Come back once you... Perfect! Here, take this as a token of his thanks. However, he still needs more. Come back once you've found them. Yes, very good. Here, you have earned this. Now he has them all. Marvelous, truly marvelous. Gertrude will own the skies like a falling star. Many thanks, my sir, and good luck on your travels.